Well, hi, good morning. Thanks so much for taking your time to join me in my shop while I do a little more work on this radio. Now, I pretty much finished with this radio about a week ago, but I really wasn't finished. I'm still waiting for a new Magic Eye to be delivered here. And also, I'm going to be installing Bluetooth to work on this radio, which is a very simple undertaking. It's really, really easy with this radio. So the thing about the Magic Eye, though, is someone's going to pay $1 to get a new Magic Eye on this radio, and I don't want it to be wearing out. I think this radio is going to be used more regularly than even the owner realizes it. Once the Bluetooth attachment is made to it, the radio becomes a fantastic jukebox for all kinds of stuff, and it's liable to be played a fair bit. If it's working in a way that the Magic Eye is always on, which is a normal thing for a radio like this, then that Magic Eye is going to wear out. Obviously, the Magic Eye that's going to go in there is not brand new. It's a low mileage, bright Magic Eye. But Magic Eyes, from what I understand, have about 1,000-hour life. So if you quickly work that out to some ridiculous numbers here, let's say this radio is played 2 hours a day. That's about 2 years worth of Magic Eye. Now, if in fact it becomes a music center for the owner and ends up playing more than that, the Magic Eye is going to wear out within far too short of a period. That's more likely this radio will be played maybe an hour a week, but who knows? I don't know. I don't know what his intention is with it. So what I want, and especially when he's playing Bluetooth or using it as a Bluetooth amplifier, I guess we could call it, there's no reason to have the Magic Eye lit up and wearing out. It's not doing anything of any benefit. So I want to install a switch which will disable the Magic Eye. I think this is not a complicated affair at all. The approach I want to take is to interrupt the heater to the Magic Eye, and that should just shut it off. Doesn't matter that it still has high voltages applied to it, and that should work fine. So the issue today is a couple things. Electrically, where does the switch go? And then physically, where does the switch go? So we'll just lean over a bit here. Here's the Magic Eye socket, waiting for the new Magic Eye. There's a new resistor I put in the back of it, sticking out the back. I have my finger there. One of those wires, or two of those wires, are heating that tube. Going to the tube heater, I'm going to trace those wires underneath the radio, find them, interrupt them, and then I want to attach a switch to the radio. Now, my original thoughts on this were to attach it to the cabinet. The cabinet's not in my shop here. Oh, it is in my shop. There it is, right there. Hey, who brought that in there? Oh, it was me. So I was thinking I would mount the switch somewhere back here. Then the owner could kind of reach around and flick the switch out of sight, and that would be fine. Except what's just dawned on me now is if the switch is not mounted right on the chassis, then there's wires going to the switch, and removing the chassis involves removing the switch from the cabinet and some other complications. Maybe I should figure out a way to put the switch on the cabinet, on the chassis. There's no holes there for me to use already. Well, I'm already into the decision-making mode here of what to do. Not very convenient. If the switch is on the chassis somehow, mounted to the chassis some way, you got to reach around and down and inside, and your hand's got to come towards this radio chassis. I'm going to stop and think about this a little more, because my idea is not holding water all that well. Well, in the meantime, though, I can explore the question of which wire is the heater wire. I just gave it a few more minutes thought, and voila, I think an interesting solution has come. So this radio has an outlet in the back here. This would be where you would plug in one of two things. You'd plug in your record player, that's the most likely thing you'd plug in here. or a lamp. Back in the day, people didn't have a lot of outlets in their homes, and if you're going to use up an outlet with this, your new radio, you bring it in the home, you plug it in the outlet, and your wife says, what are we going to do with a lamp now? Because we can't plug the lamp in and the radio at the same time. So a lot of radios provided an outlet for that purpose. Now, like I say, this one was probably intended for powering a record player. What I can do is I can disconnect the wires from this, because this shouldn't be used anymore under any circumstances for power. Disconnect the wires from it inside and cut one of the heater wires and extend those wires to the outlet here. Mount a plug on the cabinet, mount a switch on the cabinet, and then run wires from the switch and into the plug. That way, when the time comes to remove the radio from the cabinet, it will come somewhere down the road, hopefully a long time, like 20 years from now or something like that. This can just be unplugged. The switch can be left in the cabinet where it's mounted, and voila, there you go. As long as I label this properly and label the wire properly, there shouldn't really be a problem. And explain this to the owner, who obviously already knows, because guess what? He's watching this video too. So I think that's a good solution. I like that. But before I do it, yeah, let's get back into finding out which wire it is that needs to be interrupted. Looking on here, trying to spot the magic eye. Where are you, magic eye? Hello. Is it not showing on here? 514, that's the rectifier. Oh, they don't show it on here. They don't seem to show it. Here it is here on the schematic. Well, it's a fairly easy thing to sort out which wires they are anyway. I'm pretty sure I can figure that out. I'm surprised it's not showing here. It should be showing as if it's up above the cabinet, so they would tend to show it off to the side. They would show it with dotted dashed lines because it's out of view. If they don't see it. Oh. It would have been easier if it shows up on here. That's what I say. Okay, just took a moment more to spot it. Now this is a view from the top of the radio, and there's the magic eye, the socket, and the wires going back through a hole. Oh, a hole. Okay. Over here. Oh, there's the hole. It says right there, 26U5. Excuse me. Shows four wires, and it should be pretty easy. Yeah, so here's one that comes over to a heater on this tube, and there's another one going over to another heater on that tube. So there's the two wires showing there. All I got to do is interrupt those, extend them to the outlet, AC outlet. Now in this radio, according to this diagram, they're using the terminals on here as a place to fix this wire down. I bet you that's the case. Let's take a look. Because I replaced the, yeah, sure enough, that's the case. Uh-oh. This suddenly is no longer a good idea here. Here's the outlet. There's the incoming power wire soldered to it. Then here's the wires going over to the switch and into the transformer. I really have to put these on a terminal. Can't let them float. Once again, I gotta go think about this a little bit. My good idea is not so good. You know, unless I want to apply 120 volts to the heater on that eye tube. Boy, that'll make it break. Okay, I decided I'm going to leave this alone. Leave well enough alone. I've got a piece of, this is lamp cord. This is pretty heavy stuff. Don't need anything quite this heavy, but this is what I've got. And I noticed there's a terminal spare on this tube. This is the rectifier tube, I'm pretty sure. And there's a spare terminal here, and there's no pin in it either. So I could use this terminal. This is the one of the heater wires right here. You just cut it, tie it to the terminal, tie this to the terminal, spare terminal, and then attach this wire to the terminal where this one was going, down here, I believe. One of these terminals. Now, typically, and I can think it's true in this radio, the heater wires are laid in very early in the manufacture of the radio. They're among the first wires, and so they tend to be right up tight against the chassis. And I think that's done for reasons. And also, sometimes they're twisted, like this, because they're carrying a fair bit of current at 60 cycles, and that hum can make it into the speaker if you're not careful. So you don't want the wire just laying all over the back of the radio. So there's a hole right here, which I can feed this wire through. It comes out the back of the radio. It's just about perfect, really. There it is. And then, of course, by using these terminals, this wire is not likely to move around or be tugged. Unlike the power cord, which is, in normal use, you move the radio, you plug it in, you unplug it. This is being tugged on quite regularly. This one won't be. This one's going up to a fixed switch. So all that should work out quite well, I think. Just put those down there like that. I have to just verify this wire. Then I've got to deal with the mounting of the switch. This is the switch I've selected. The problem with this switch, and I guess all these switches, is the terminals are exposed on the back. And somebody's feeling around to work the switch, they can easily get their hand right around the back. Voltage here is 6.3 volts. Not really enough to give you a shock. I mean, you're not going to feel it anyway. The switch itself, oh, this one's bent. I have another one here. The switch itself is good for 125 volts. Underwriter's Lab Incorporated, and right beside it says CSA. There's a CSA stamp on it. Underwriters Labs is the American standards group, I believe, and in Canada it's called the Canadian Standards Association, CSA. 125 volts, 3 amps. No, 250 volts. 250 volts. It's got both ratings on here. 125 DC, 250 AC. Now, why would a switch have a lower rating on DC? Maybe you might kind of think DC, wow, that's easy. But actually it's harder to break a direct current arc than an alternating current arc, because the alternating current arc is passing through a zero over and over. And at the moment it's zero, the arc will snuff out, and then it won't restrike. It's easy to break an AC current. DC current, you can pull an arc, but there's nothing, there's no cycle, there's nothing, it's not going to fall to zero, the voltage is going to continue. So it's a little harder to break a DC voltage. I guess that's not quite the right way to say it, but I think you know what I mean. Now I got to figure out where I'm going to mount this on the radio, someplace that's convenient but out of sight. Okay, let me ponder that for a little bit. Okay, something more to consider here is what kind of switch. Now I had selected this kind, frankly, because I have a lot of these. I have a lot of them. All structured very similarly, with the holes off to the sliding side. Can I call it that? Oh, that's a spring-loaded one. I wouldn't want that. But the problem with this switch is when you reach back and you're feeling it in the dark and you can't see it, you don't know if you're supposed to push it this way or that way or this way, yep, this way, or that way. Sounds like a silly thing, but you know, I know I've done this. You go to push the switch, it won't go, so you push harder on the switch. So the switch doesn't, when you feel it, it doesn't communicate to you which way it's supposed to go. But there are switches that do that. That's a toggle type switch like this. Well, this is kind of a bad example though. So if you were to reach up, you can kind of get a sensation of where the switch lever is, and you know it's got to go the other way. These little switches aren't quite, like a bigger version of this would be better. This is a 3-position switch, isn't it? Shouldn't it snap 3 times? Yeah. These are cheap switches. Well, they only snap one. This one's got a bit of an angle on it, but how do you mount this? There's no easy way to mount these in a wooden cabinet. These ones are easy because of the screw holes here in the frame. I've got some other oddball switches here. So here's a big honker toggle switch. You can clearly feel it, and you would know which way to push on it. Again, how are you going to mount that? This is meant to be mounted through a hole, just like these other ones here, these little guys. In the back, I don't want to drill a hole in the cabinet and have this protruding out the back. The idea is to have this kind of hidden inside a little bit. There's nowhere in there. You know, it's made of wood, so the wooden cabinet is pretty thick, and this is looking for just a thin piece of metal to be mounted in. I'd have to come up with some kind of a bracket and everything. I like that switch though. It's kind of odd he has a claw. I think the idea of this one is you have some kind of rod which is swinging through it. Something like that. I don't know. Okay, and a push button would be nice. Okay, it needs to be mounted through a hole. That's a nice switch. Made by Grayhill. Too many choices. Through a hole or not, with a bracket. Wow. Okay, I gotta go think some more about what I want to do here. Okay, after some pretty thorough rummaging, I found this bracket. Yeah, it's got a phono plug riveted to it, but I can get rid of that. And I do like this switch. All you gotta do is get your finger on it and push it. You don't have to worry about which way to push it. Let's check the switch here and see if this works. It's a no-go. Son of a gun. Can't be my fingers. 2,000 ohms. How do you like that? Well, okay. Boy, I thought I had every piece in hand. Okay, that's disappointing. It just sounds so nice. Phooey. Okay, back to the drawing board. I don't actually have a drawing board. Okay, well maybe while we're busy looking at switches, have a look at these. This is a box full of micro switches. Of course, these have nothing to do with the project that I'm working on. How many different ways can you do a micro switch? Oh my gosh. Of course, look, micro switch. Look at how big they are. And on it goes. Here's a small one. Okay. Hey, this isn't a micro switch. Well, nothing in here that's going to help. I thought just maybe there's a bracket or something in here. No, there isn't. Okay. Continue my search. I'm pretty sure I have a lot of larger toggle switches somewhere. Gotta find them. Well, maybe I'll share another box of junk here and we'll see what we can find in this thing. I doubt very much what I'm after is in here. This is kind of household hardware. Oh my gosh, look at those springs. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna. Certainly not gonna find switches in here. Big bolts. The stuff I keep. My gosh. No, I'm not going to find a bracket here. Have not found my box of switches yet. I'm sure I've got some bigger toggle switches, but I did find a couple more possible brackets here I could possibly use. So I have this one waiting to find a useful place in my shop, so I don't think I really want to give up this. It's a little big. Well, this little bracket here, which is part of a window blind, but I think I could put a switch through there and mount this. I have the ideal one here, except I have to drill out rivets. Oh boy. Oh boy, boy, boy. Such simple stuff. Well, the hunt continues. Okay, out of the corner of my eye I spotted this switch, which is on this little project chassis here. I do little projects on here. Last time I really put this to work, I was fooling around with trying to test tubes without a tube tester. And I could easily grab this switch. Now this is a 3-position switch. It's off in the middle, on to one terminal that way, and on to another terminal that way. So it's not quite ideal because it's got 3 positions, but the thing about a switch like this, if you have it on a light, you know, as soon as you turn it on, the light comes on, you know, oh, I got it. But that's not the case with this. When you turn it on, it's going to fire up a heater. It's going to take a few seconds. So that would mean the person operating this switch, you know, assumably be in the off position or in the unused position. In the off position, you wouldn't know which way to throw it. You have to throw it and wait. Oh, is the eye working? No, it's not working. La 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 la. It's a nice big switch. Who wants to hide a nice switch like that in the back of a radio either? You want to hide an ugly switch back there. Let's carry on with the hunt. Well, a whole day has passed since the last clip. I left my shop and I got so involved in the rest of life, I never made it back in here. To be honest with you, I think I'm just like everybody. I am definitely having trouble these days because of all the bad news around us. And of course I'm talking about COVID and Omicron, which is taking off here in Canada very, very rapidly. The R factor, that's the number of people a sick person infects on average, is measured at 4.5. The Delta virus was 1, something like that. 4.5, you know. Sounds like you can't hide from it no matter what. I'm lucky here. I have 3 shots of vaccine. We have 2 AstraZeneca, which in themselves turn out not to be very potent against Omicron at all. But then I have a 3rd shot of the Pfizer product, and that was a couple weeks ago. So I'm about as vaccinated as anybody could be. Yet the word is, there's still a chance of getting sick. In my case, if I were to get COVID, and some experts are saying we're all going to get it at this point, can't hide from it anymore, chances of me getting very sick is low. In the hospital is extremely low. But nevertheless, like everybody, I'm getting ready for Christmas. And we had plans, and we're reconsidering those plans, although we're not even talking about it, but we all know it. We all know what's happening. So my guess is you're fighting with the same depressive forces, and probably a lot more than me, because the rest of my life is pretty good. If it wasn't for COVID, I would be the happiest guy on the planet. I sort of have a natural bent to be happy. It's kind of my go-to place. But it's gotten very, very difficult now, and not the least of which is listening to the American news. Shame on me for doing that, but they've got more going on down there than COVID, that's for sure. A little bit scary for a Canadian to watch a big nation like the United States, which we're bolted to, kind of lose its way. something you think, well, that just can't happen. Just can't happen. But it is happening. Yeah. Okay, so that's a happy stuff. Thank you for joining me in my depression here. So what I'm doing is I'm installing the extension wire that's going to go over to the switch on the back of the radio. I've cut the ground lead to the heater of the eye tube, and I'm just connecting it up. And grabbing my solder. I guess another thing that's kind of depressing is we had a lot of beautiful white snow outside. Fell about a week ago. And then the weather turned around here. And I can't be complaining about the weather considering what's happening to other people in North America. East Coast, West Coast of Canada, Central United States, West Coast of the United States. It's just disasters everywhere, it seems. Yeah, welcome to my shop of depression here today. That's right, I have my doubts about posting any of this video, so if you've watched it, you know the decision I made in the end. But it's not so wise for me to talk about current events on my channel. This is not a current events channel. Although most of my views come quickly after I post a video. There are people who will watch this video a year or 2 or 3 from now. Whereas listening to current events out of date is kind of a waste of time. And surely if you're watching this video and 3 years have gone by, COVID is a long forgotten thing. I hope. I hope. If 3 years have gone by and you're watching this video and COVID is still hanging around, oh boy, that's a bad thing. I mean, the good news is this latest Omicron infection that's going to run through the world, or is running through the world, may be the end of the pandemic. A number of experts are suggesting that this is what will end it. There'll be so much immunity, vaccinated or not, that for the few months following it, COVID will have nowhere to go, and it will fade away. Kind of leaves me wondering, you know, all those pandemics that have happened to humans in the past, the ones we heard about, you know, the plague and all that kind of stuff, which we oops. Put on a shrink sleeve here. How did they come to an end? It certainly wasn't through vaccination. I guess it just enough people get sick. Maybe the fact is, even with those diseases, many people get it, but don't actually get ill. And so the level of immunity is extremely high among the population after a certain point. And then the virus has nowhere to go, and it fades out. It collapses. I guess that's what happens. Although I think you can go to places in the world today and find people who have got bubonic plague. I think that's the case. I'm not sure. Kind of a weird notion, isn't it? Yeah, all those things we heard about that happened in the old world would never happen in the modern world, but here it is. I'm so thankful for all those people who they're using their expertise to try to help humanity through this thing. Because I certainly couldn't whip up a vaccine. That's a little bit... Oh, don't you have to solder that first? Yes, you have to solder that first, Jim. That was almost a bad mistake. That's probably one of the reasons I shouldn't really be in here doing any work. On a totally different note, I've been having lots of fun on my ham radio lately. I'm doing the FT8 thing. If you're a ham radio operator, you know what I'm talking about. That's a lot of fun. I go on this website, and I'm sure if you're a ham radio operator doing this, you do too. This website called pskreporter.info. I won't go into the details of it. Again, if you're a ham radio operator, you know all this. That just blows the doors off this hobby. I can have a ton of fun without ever actually making direct contact, digital contact with anybody. I can be on FT8, never have a QSO, and have a ton of fun all day long. Mainly because of that mapping site, PSK Reporter. So if you're not a ham radio operator, go on that website and take a look at the map. Look around it a little bit, get an idea of what's going on. Everybody should get into ham radio. The cost of ham radio is dropping. The need for precision is gone. You slap up a lousy antenna, feed it with a piece of junk cable, run it at 5 watts so nothing is important, and presto, you're communicating. Fantastic. There's no need to send 500 watts out to your antenna anymore. No need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. Now, one of the things about my personal approach to the radio hobby here is to not spend money. Might be a little obvious to you watching my videos that I don't spend a lot of money. That's why I have all this old equipment. Funny thing is that the newest equipment is just as cheap as buying old beater equipment. Some of the newer equipment that you can get is fantastic. I could never have guessed that this whole hobby, ham radio, shortwave radio, all this stuff, would become so doable at this point. I would have thought the opposite. They would just get more and more difficult. Parts and stuff more and more difficult to get. Information impossible to get. That's what it looked like to me 25 years ago. So there we are. We're connected. I can throw this back into the cabinet. I still have to decide what switch and how to mount it. And I'm looking for a heavier, you know what, I may very well use one of these guys here. Pick this one. I'd like to use a heavier looking switch, but yeah, still got to think about things a little bit. Now I'm going to go watch a bit of an old movie, American-made movie, Hollywood-type movie, about the RCMP here in Canada. What the heck? I don't know much of it. I don't think it's historically accurate at all. So, okay, off I go. Okay, I just realized I said RCMP, and if you're Canadian, you know what I'm talking about. But if I said Mounties, You probably know what I'm talking about, no matter where you're from in the world. Mounties with the beautiful red outfit. We still have Mounties, but I don't think they're mounted on horses anymore. Well, thank you very much for watching this video. Sorry it's not ending with the magic eye. There'll be one more video for this radio when everything is here and put together. So I'll say goodbye from the wild north.